Welcome to the Five of Us. We are five outspoken women with close to 150 years of experience as broadcast journalists. We left our jobs on the very same day, and we are dedicated to helping women avoid the many pitfalls common to the workplace. We've heard from hundreds of people recounting tales of woe on the job, and we have done the research, we're putting it all in a book, and we are here to help. I'm Roma Torrey, and along with Kristen Shaughnessy, Janine Ramirez, Vivian Lee, and Amanda Farinacci, we are the Five of Us. Hi, everyone. It hasn't gone unnoticed that we are entering a work revolution in this first quarter of the century. Artificial intelligence and advanced technology is creating an explosion of new careers and also leading to the extinction of others. And it's happening so quickly, many of us have yet to keep up with it, let alone even notice what's been going on in the workforce lately. So it's time for a reality check. The future is here. I always, think of the Jetsons and all the cool things that I used to think were just so amazing as a child. Some of that is here. I mean, we don't have flying cars yet, but we do have self-driving vehicles, and we're just sort of on the verge of, that being the new revolution in transportation. So anyway, work is changing at an exponential rate, and we've already lost some jobs that we used to rely on, even 10 years ago. So Janine, why don't you start us off and sort of give a rundown of the jobs that have disappeared lately?
Well, it's not even lately. Over the course of my lifetime, I mean, there was a point where Kodak was the premier industry company, right? Because it was like film and processing film, and that's Kodak went bankrupt. Nobody's doing that anymore. It's all digital. That's gone away. Travel agents, you usually want to book a trip. You went to a travel agency and they put together your whole itinerary and you paid that person. That's gone away for the most part. You just do everything online. You can research online. You can book everything online, the hotel, the airfare, everything. You go to stores these days, there's a lot of self-checkout. So where are the cashiers? You go and you could, check out yourself. So those jobs are disappearing. Bank tellers. I remember when I was little, my mom used to have to go to the bank and stand online to deposit a check or take money out for the weekend. The banks were closed on the weekend. So here, you get ATM, you do online banking. There's no real need anymore as much for a bank teller to get your money and exchange money and deposit money. You just could do that all online. You can even go to McDonald's. You go to McDonald's and there's like an app. You could order off of the app. You don't have to tell somebody your order. And they just give you a bag filled with whatever your order was. There is, taxi drivers. Obviously, in New York City, taxi drivers have been having a hard time. They paid a lot of money for a medallion to become a yellow taxi driver, and Uber comes around, and now they're still drivers right now, because you did talk about self-driving cars. There are drivers, but now the whole technology on how to hail a cab is on your phone. It's all technology based. So it eliminates a lot of the yellow taxi drivers. It eliminates a lot of dispatchers who used to talk to the taxi drivers on where to go. Cable TV, newspapers, people are getting their news online and not getting the print version anymore. People are streaming, people are watching shows streaming. So the whole television industry is going through a revolution. There's, warehouses, a lot of people are not doing the packing and the stockroom duties anymore. That's all automated for the most part, that as well. Accountants, even like normal people, individuals are just going to TurboTax and they're doing their tax returns online, and the computer is now flagging, if there's something wrong, and we'll fix it. And same thing for a company. They'll turn to like a QuickBooks and they'll be doing entire payroll systems or expense tracking online. They don't really need a person to take care of the books. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. From postal workers, right? We're seeing like the U.S. Postal Service, that's not being able to maintain itself. It's not sustainable, based on everybody just doing all their stuff online. You're just emailing people, or you're just paying bills. You're not really putting it in the mailbox anymore. And so the whole automation is changing everything. Customer service, even customer service, everything is virtual. They think, how can I help you? You say, you see it right on the screen. So there's a virtual assistant for you for that. So obviously automation is cheaper for companies. They can get these automated systems to work 24/7, unlike people. There's no compensation or benefits after you put the system in place. There's no compensation, there's no benefits. They're usually faster. Specifically for jobs that are like more repetitive or monotonous, or, a little bit more dangerous, like even drones are going in to do some surveillance work or some detonating of bombs. It's not a person anymore. So across all industries, technology is really taking over all these jobs. And so it's going to keep going like that. It's not going back. So those industries and those jobs, a lot of them are gone forever.
Yeah, I read somewhere that robots, for every one robot, you lose 3.3 jobs. So, I know a lot of people are really worried about their future employment. But, on the positive front, jobs that exist today and are likely to stick around. This is according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is odd too, the 4 fastest growing job categories. Well, the first one makes a lot of sense. Nurse practitioners, right? I don't think we're at the level now where a robot can necessarily treat what ails us. But along with that is wind turbine service technicians, which is pretty cool. And then it's ushers, lobby attendants, and ticket takers. I don't know why that can't be automated. It's just really weird. And get this, movie projectionists. Those jobs are here to stay, which is really bizarre. But the reality is that jobs are disappearing before our eyes. And I guess you could say it's thanks or no thanks. A lot of people are thinking to robotics and technology. So, Amanda, what can we look forward to not seeing in terms of jobs existing in the near future?
I think Janine did like a really good job of giving the jobs that aren't going to look like exist anymore. She kind of went soup to nuts on all of the things that will be gone. So I think that people need to start really imagining what the future looks like without some of the things that we've all sort of grown up with. Like I actually used a travel agent to book my honeymoon like 10 plus years ago. And I had a conversation with somebody recently. They were planning a big trip, and the topic of a travel agent came up, and it was like, wait a second, like, who even do they still even exist even at all? And I have a friend who even wanted to start a business like that, and she was like, yeah, I think it's important to have somebody share their personal experience. And then someone else chimed in and was like, that's what like TripAdvisor is for, where you like put the review online and you can read through all the different comments and see. So I think that what we've got now is a society where people are just looking for quicker, faster, cheaper, easier, more efficient, right? And unfortunately, some of the jobs that exist that traditionally were done by one person, several people, manual labor kinds of things, physical presence, those jobs are just going to be gone. Even like if you go in the subways, right? Like you don't even see a toll collector anymore, which starts a whole conversation about like safety pieces, because like just because you can swipe a card or stick a coin, or whatever with your phone, to even think about how many jobs your phone has replaced. Like just you carrying around your phone, right? Like what you can do. You don't have to call to get movie theater tickets, everything you do is like on your phone with a QR code that you scan through an app or something else. So it's interesting. I think these are like interesting changes. I think like my children are like under 10, and they'll grow up in a completely different world in which things that in 20 years, when they're older, I'll say, oh, remember when there was like a cash wrap person at Stop and Shop? And they'll be like, what in God's name is that? You know what I mean? And I think that we have to just start thinking about what the jobs will look like in the future, like what things will happen. I do have some hope that some of the jobs in the future will be that there are actually humans who will, like, quote unquote, police what all of this artificial intelligence is doing. And like, they will be able, there's like that there are systems in place to control so that we're not like overrun like Terminator by artificial intelligence and robots. And I think that just begs the point about the importance of robotics and science and engineering and all of that stuff. I think that those are the jobs that really look like they're going to be around. That would be my best bet for like where you should put your time and energy.
Yeah,
education, right?
Yeah, with the new technology. By the way, with the Writers Guild on strike, and the writers are on strike these days, and I came across an article in Fast Company that is really depressing. And I'm just going to quote the line that I read from there, because can you believe it? They're talking about even writers losing their livelihoods to technology. And the quote is, studio CEOs are betting on several trends working in unison to make writers obsolete, or at least lessen them as workers, creators, storytellers, and human beings. Wow. That bodes really bad news for all of us, I think. Because they're talking about artificial intelligence substituting for human creation. I mean, the ability that humans have to create. And that really is terrifying. And I think we've all seen as well that record producers are able to replicate the voices of, famous pop singers like Drake. I forget some other names, but they can create songs that sound exactly like these singers sound, and it will fool people. This to me is not a good sign. But anyway, I digress a little bit. Kristen, as we look ahead, the good news is there are going to be new jobs that are being created that we can all take advantage of. It's going to require a whole new skill set and new training, but I guess that's gives some hope to young people who are looking ahead to a future where technology is taking over.
Before I get to the more serious numbers, I just saw earlier there was a woman. She's like an influencer. We were talking about social media in one of our past podcasts, and she created an AI version of herself, and she's now renting herself out as a girlfriend $1 a minute, and it looks just like her. So anyway, there's room for influence in AI.
What is she doing? What do you mean renting her? What are you doing?
Yeah, what is she doing? For a minute. The talks, it looks like her. It's like crazy.
You mean like that? Is it like
I'll
that
send
movie?
it to you afterward. it's
like
wild.
that movie with Scarlett Johansson when the guy falls in love with her and she's.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Or her, right? The voice, right?
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
All right. So some other numbers now. That was just something that I saw. The World Economic Forum of this year, they estimated that about a quarter of the jobs that we have right now are expected to change in the next 5 years, which is pretty significant. It's about 23%. So 69 million new jobs will be created that we don't know about, which is great, but 83 million jobs will be eliminated. So that's a scary number because 69 million to 83 million is different. These are some of the jobs that they say they expect 2 million jobs to be created in each category from this year, 2023 to 2027. It's heavy truck and bus drivers, which is interesting, right? With all the automation, vocational education teachers. So there's been a lot of talk, will college be as necessary? But vocations will be. So I sort of feel like all the people who do the vocational schools get their comeuppance, which I like, like they get their turn in the sun, which is nice. Self-driving mechanics, because I always wonder what happens to mechanics when everything goes electric, right? Because then it's a computer, but they need self-driving mechanics, and machinery repairers. Those are the categories that will add 2 million jobs a year. Some of the other jobs that they say will happen are autonomous and electric vehicle specialists, which makes sense, AI and machine learning specialists, environmental protection professionals. Some of these job titles, I'm like, there's a couple more too. Fintech engineers and sustainability specialists. So first, I guess you have to figure out like what each of these jobs really entails and where it fits into your world around you. And then in Replicon, they had this, I thought this was funny because it's chief productivity officer. I'm like, really? Like, what is that? Come on, right? Chief productivity officer, they're probably making a huge amount of money, whatever. So instead of, I guess, a CEO, you have a CPO. I don't know. Then they have an excess capacity broker. And you're like, what the heck is an excess capacity broker? Turns out if it's like they take all the idle assets because you won't need as much space, you won't need as much machinery. So rent those out and find out where they can be utilized. So that would be what that person does. Remote drone drivers and pilots, you were talking about drones, Janine. So they need people who can figure them out and get them where they want to go. A medical mentor. This would be someone who follows up on your appointments, because you know how all the doctor's appointments are sort of so rushed now because healthcare is the way it is. This is someone who checks up, makes sure you're following all the protocols, also helps you through the insurance process if you need that. So all those different things, that liaison that really is missing today. So that makes sense. Two more for you. A cybersecurity threat specialist, for obvious reasons. I think we need those now. And then the other one, or two more, virtual reality programmer, because virtual reality is so big, especially among like the teenage set and the 20-year-olds. And then the final one is an end-of-life coach. And yes, you have hospice, but this is more creating more days to live, putting more life in your days as opposed to putting days in your life. So just a different way of thinking about death and the end of your life.
Wow. Well, that's profound. Very sustainable way. Wow. Yeah. Well, you talk about all these things and they're going to require specializations and new ways of learning and new curricula in schools. And yet I've heard it time and time again that schools are not preparing students for the future. And so I think it's time for a reset in the way we think about education in this country. And I know that, Vivian, you've been eager to talk about that because it is a problem that is pretty obvious these days.
Yeah, there's a weird chicken and egg kind of argument happening on that. I'll get to that in a second. First off, a couple of stats showing just how bad the situation is. There's an organization that's been around since 1956 called the National Association of Colleges and Employers. So these are the institutions who have been linking with potential employers for decades to try and make sure that those in higher education are providing students what they need to be productive members of the workforce, right? And what they are reporting is that over the last couple of years, only 30% of colleges and universities career centers in the United States actually had industry partnerships that the students on campus could take advantage of. So that's a dismally low number. Yeah. And it shows that the relationships between higher ed institutions and organizations and companies, they have not been established and thriving over the last several decades since this NACE organization has been in existence. And then recently, Google and a consulting firm known as BCE did a survey of more than 160 American business executives and couple dozen higher ed officials. And what they found was that only 36% of the employers felt that their workers were coming out of higher ed institutions with adequate training. So the employers are noticing that the students are missing something. Meanwhile, there is a model out there. I read a report about Northeastern University in London, which started something that they called an experiential learning partnership with a tech firm known as ServiceNow. It started in 2021. And what the students of Northeastern University did was they were placed in jobs with ServiceNow, where 80% of the time on the job, they were actually learning new skills that that company wanted them to have. And then another 20% of their time was spent fulfilling the requirements so that they could graduate from their programs. So it's made easier because the UK actually has a government subsidy that universities and colleges can take advantage of to make these partnerships available. There's nothing as robust here in the United States, although when you have organizations like the National Association of Colleges and Employers, you would think that they would be talking to each other. Meanwhile, the chicken and egg argument that I was talking about before, and this was a direct result of the pandemic, there's a lot of statistics showing that there's an incredible drop in the number of potential students who are enrolling in undergrad programs. In fact, a lot of colleges and universities, some as old as 150 years old or more have been shuttering because their enrollment is so down. There is no money coming in. Couple of examples: Lincoln College in Lincoln, Illinois, shut down. San Francisco Institute of Art, shut down. And experts are saying that if college is on the horizon for you or for your children, that you really should be looking at the college's financial situation. Like, take a look at whether they have academic bloat. I'm not even sure how you would even start to measure that, but the fact remains that there is declining domestic enrollment, and a lot of these colleges and universities are relying on international students who come with cash in hand. The bulk of them do not apply for scholarships the way American students do, and they're ready to start paying for their tuition. Another sobering statistic is from the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center, which reported last fall of 2022, that over the last couple of years, enrollment had dropped by 1.4 million students compared to 2 years prior to that. And that represents a 9.4% drop. There was a whole bunch of other micro data in their study that they put out last fall, but it's a terrible number. I mean, the private elite colleges and universities like Ivy Leagues, they're fine. They're still fine. They'll probably be fine for quite some time. It's the smaller colleges and universities and the public institutions that are hurting the most because they're lacking revenue. Are they lacking revenue because students are figuring, it makes more sense to go get a job anywhere right now to try and make money? A lot of students, they weren't able to afford the technology you needed to go online, so they dropped out during the pandemic. Their parents lost jobs during the pandemic. And what we're finding right now is that even with the pandemic sort of receding behind us now, the enrollment isn't quite up to where it was even a handful of years ago.
Mm-hmm. It seems to me like the trend is targeted learning now, that more and more kids go to school because they want a good job. I mean, I know that goes without saying before, but I think the days of, going to school, not knowing what it is that you want to do and just majoring in liberal arts are going to the wayside or waning. I think we really need to pinpoint an area or a field that we want to excel in and be trained specifically for, because the workplace is just changed so dramatically and technology has truly taken over. I always end with a quote, and I'm going to end with this quote, but there's a little more explanation to it, and it's kind of chilling. And the quote is from Ray Kurzweil, who's a sort of a futurist scientist who's made some predictions in the past that a lot of people say have already come true. But in his quote, he says, artificial intelligence will reach human levels by around 2029. Follow that out further to say 2045, we will have multiplied the intelligence, the human biological machine intelligence of our civilization a billion-fold. So, and just to amplify on that, Kurzweil, who gave that quote, had predicted that he calls it technological singularity. And that is defined as the crucial moment when machines become smarter than humans. And he says that's going to occur in our lifetime, when machines become smarter than humans. And it will, in essence, go beyond our ability. Machines will go beyond our ability to control them. And it keeps, what keeps coming to mind is that scene in 2001: A Space Odyssey, near the end, when the computer HAL has essentially taken over the spaceship, and the character Dave, who's the astronaut, wants HAL to open up a door. And Hal says, no, I cannot do that, Dave, in that awful flat voice, and it's like, oh my God, the computer is overruling the human. And we're close to that point. And then there's just one other thing that really caught my eye, and that is that Kurzweil is projecting that it's won't be long before we can achieve, get this, immortality. And he actually said it could happen as early as the year 2030, just 7 years from now. And just to sort of put a exclamation point on that. He said he believes that our technological and medical progress will grow to the point that robotics, which he calls nanobots, will work to repair our bodies at the cellular level, turning disease and aging around thanks to the continual work of robotic know-how. And then voila, immortality. Can you imagine? And he's projecting as soon as the year 2030. Wow, it's
a little
great,
disturbing and apocalyptic about that. So we could achieve immortality only to have absolutely no function left, no ability to work at the
no control, right?
Because they're all gone, because they've all been automated. It's a weird, it's kind of some kind of self-destructive, I don't know, paradigm.
Do you guys really want to live forever?
No.
Yeah. And what it does to global economics, all these, I mean, the economy counts on, people's demise because you just can't afford to maintain all these bodies on Earth, right? So,
especially if they're not working because the machines are doing all the jobs.
Yeah, that's true. So what are we going to do? Where's the money coming? You know what I mean? It's just,
you could make yourself sick with worry if you sat there and thought about it long enough. But there are good things too, right? I mean, it could revolutionize like medical care and all of that stuff in very good ways. So you just hope the people with the power who are programming these machines have integrity.
You know what's a good example? You know how if you guys have like Stop and Shop, I don't know if you have that like near your house or whatever. We have that near my house, and they have that like robot thing that like goes around the aisles. And so we've been in the store and my kids like are kind of interested in it, but I think they're a little bit afraid of it because it's like this like it almost looks like a maid on I don't even whatever. It's just weird. It's just a weird thing. But we were in the store one day when the thing was like literally following somebody. And my girls were like, Mom, like, what is the robot doing? And it was a woman and like an older guy. And you could see they were like visibly, I think that the machine, I assume there's some control on the machine that's like in, some room somewhere, but like people were flipping out because this robot was like on a mission following this woman and her husband, like up and down every aisle. And I'm like laughing about it, but like, that's the whole point, right? Like where you're like, wait a second, why is this friggin' machine following me? I'm trying to buy some friggin' apples. Like, get me out of this place, right? Like that's the whole point.
Aren't they for like to clean up spills and
they are? But we were at a restaurant and they delivered our food. There was 2 robots. They delivered the food and were like taking orders and stuff.
Oh, that's wow.
How about delivering the news? I was in Toronto not long ago. I was driving and I almost had to pull over because I realized this voice had given all the top headlines, the weather, and sports. And it was all in a monotone. And she said certain things that Torontonians would not say. Like you don't refer to the MTA here in New York as the Metropolitan Transportation Authority. But this voice referred to the TTC, which is the equivalent in Toronto, as the Toronto Transportation Authority. And I was like, first of all, nobody would say that in Toronto. Second of all, it sounds awful. Third, nobody says Toronto in Toronto. And I was stunned because, on the heels of Apple announcing that they were going to hire more AI voice trackers to do their audible books, their auditory books. I mean, it's coming. It's here, right?
Well, give it another year. They'll probably perfect the voice, right? Or another 2 years. They'll sound human.
I have faith, though, that human beings are going to want connection still means something, and there will be enough pushback.
I hope and pray, but you know what?
I want an usher. I want a movie usher.
I want a movie projectionist. I mean, I really hope, but there's a cynical side of me that says it's a lot cheaper to get a robot to do these things and get artificial intelligence to voice a news anchor. And it's scary. It really is scary. We just have to hope and pray that that wisdom prevails. Wisdom prevails, and that there's, as you say, integrity and ethics that go into it. All right, this was great conversation, guys. We should go, but good luck to you and folks listening in. I hope you're able to keep your jobs at least in the next year or so, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again. Thanks for tuning in to The Five of Us. We want to hear from you with any questions, ideas, or suggestions for future discussions. Just write to us at the email you see here, and we will be eager to help. Talk to you next time.